This is about your sister, and the sacred that dwells hidden within her life. A sacred that for so long has been veiled, guarded, and sheltered, as though it were a flame too tender to be exposed to the winds. A truth folded into the quiet fabric of her being, carried with her into every room she entered, into every silence she kept, into every smile she wore, a secret that shaped her more than she ever let on, and shaped you, though you did not yet know it. Because the hidden within one person always spills its shadow and its light into the lives of those bound to them by blood and love. And though we often believe secrets are self-contained, they are in truth like roots growing beneath the soil, unseen yet spreading, twisting, entwining with the roots of others, shaping the orchard in which the family tree grows. And now, after seasons of silence, there comes the hour when veils are lifted, when what was carried within the chambers of her heart must be revealed, not as an act of betrayal, not as an act of shame, but as the inevitable rising of dawn upon a night that cannot last forever. For secrets are like stars, brilliant but temporary against the approach of day, and though revelation frightens us, it is also the beginning of freedom. Because what is hidden too long becomes a burden, a weight pressing against ribs, a stone lodged in the throat, and no soul can bear forever what was meant to be released. Think for a moment of the strange paradox of family, how we live so near to one another, share meals, share laughter, share the walls of a home or the memory of childhood rooms, and yet there can remain distances more vast than oceans between siblings. Because what is spoken and what is withheld build invisible walls, and though you may have thought you knew her, though you may have believed every secret between you two had been spoken in the confidences of youth, or the quarrels and reconciliations of growing together, there was something deeper, something held, something so sacred it demanded silence, and now it comes forward, not to diminish what you had, but to deepen it. For only when truth steps into the open can love be tested in its fullness. And only when a soul bears itself can another soul decide whether to stand in loyalty or to flee into judgment. The moment of revelation is never an easy moment, for it comes like thunder across the hills, startling, shaking the ground, and yet it is also like rain that follows, cleansing, quenching, renewing the soil that had grown cracked under drought. So imagine this unveiling not as a tearing apart, but as a kind of unveiling of a hidden garden. A space long locked away, where flowers have grown in secret, tended in shadows. And now at last the gate swings open, and you are invited to see what she has carried, what she has nurtured, what she has suffered to keep hidden. And you are faced with a choice. The same choice every soul faces when confronted with another's vulnerability. Will you draw near with reverence, as one stepping on holy ground, removing the sandals of pride and judgment, or will you trample, dismiss, turn away, leaving her naked in her exposure? There is a sacredness to secrets, because they are not merely withheld words, they are bound up with identity, woven into the soul, and so when they are revealed, it is not like the passing of information, it is the unveiling of the person herself. It is her stepping forth in trembling courage, saying, "This too is me. This too belongs to my story. This too has been the shadow and the weight under which I walked." And revelation is never only about the content of the secret, it is about the courage to speak, the risk of trust, the longing to be seen as whole rather than as fragment. And so you must understand that in this moment, when her sacred is revealed, you are not merely a listener. You are a participant. You are being asked to carry what she could no longer carry alone. You are being invited to share in the weight, in the sorrow, perhaps in the shame, but also in the redemption. And here lies the strange mercy of such moments, that the revelation of what was hidden does not only liberate the one who carried it, but also those who unknowingly lived in its orbit. Because though you did not know, you were shaped by its silence, you were touched by the shadows it cast. You were drawn into the dance of concealment, though you never realized you were moving in rhythm with it. And now, when the truth breaks forth, it is as though a new music begins, one that rewrites the steps of the dance, one that frees you both to move in a truer harmony. Though at first the melody may sound strange, dissonant, even unbearable, it is nonetheless real. And realness is always the foundation of redemption. The danger of secrecy lies not in the hiddenness itself, but in the slow erosion of trust it causes. For trust is built on the assumption that what is most important is shared, that the masks we wear will eventually be set aside. And so when the sacred secret is revealed, it can feel like betrayal. It can feel like the ground shifts beneath your feet. But if you can see beyond the first tremor, if you can recognize that what is offered is not betrayal, but finally honesty, then you can step into a deeper communion than you had ever known before. And you can discover that love, which is tested, is stronger than love, which is never challenged. That loyalty which survives revelation is truer than loyalty that floats on illusion. There will be those who say some secrets are better left untold. That silence is safer, that the bonds of family should not be risked by dragging hidden wounds into the light. But those who say this forget that silence corrodes. Forget that what is hidden rots like fruit left too long in the dark. Forget that the soul cannot heal while it remains shrouded. And though revelation may wound in the moment, it is the wound that leads to healing. As the surgeon's cut leads not to death, but to life. So too must her sacred be revealed, so too must you be given the chance to see, to understand, to bear alongside her what she bore alone. And though it may not seem so now, though fear may whisper in your ear, though doubt may gnaw, the truth once revealed does not diminish her. It enlarges her. It shows her not as less but as more complex, more human, more in need of mercy, more in need of love. And so the unveiling is not a collapse but a rising, not a shattering but a transfiguration. Because only when the full truth of a soul is seen can the full depth of love be offered. And you, hearing, receiving, are given your own sacred task. For revelation is never one-sided. It is always a summons, always an invitation. And in this moment, when her sacred is revealed, you are called to be more than a brother, more than a sister, more than family in name alone. You are called to be family in truth, to stand in solidarity, to hold the fragile with reverence, to guard what was entrusted to you, to answer her vulnerability with faithfulness, to let the unveiling be not the end, but the beginning of something truer than what came before. This is about your sister, and the sacred weight of revelation, the moment when what was private becomes public, when the long-kept silence is broken, and the chamber of hiddenness is thrown open to the winds. And it is a fearful thing, a trembling thing, to stand at the edge of such disclosure, for there is something almost divine about it, as though heaven itself leaned in to watch what happens when a human heart unclenches its fist and releases what it has carried, whether it be sorrow, guilt, joy, shame, or secret hope. And in that hour the air feels charged, as if lightning had brushed its fingers across the sky. And all who are present know that this is no ordinary speech, no trivial sharing, but the unveiling of something that has pressed upon the soul with such weight that its very release is like the shifting of tectonic plates. And the ground trembles with consequence. Revelation has always been a threshold, a doorway across which one passes and is never the same again. And when it comes to the sacred things of family, it shakes not only the one who speaks but the whole house. Because family is not a gathering of isolated individuals but a woven fabric, and when one thread is pulled the entire tapestry is changed. And so when she reveals, when she opens her hand and lays bare what she once clutched to her breast, you too are implicated, you too are summoned into the drama. Because what was hidden between her ribs is suddenly shared with your own beating heart, and what she bore in solitude is now a burden, or a blessing that you must also carry. It is a dangerous thing to reveal what was once sacredly private, for the risk of misunderstanding is immense, the risk of rejection ever near, the risk that what was entrusted will be mishandled like fine glass placed in careless hands. And this is why such moments are wrapped in trembling, why the very act of speaking takes courage greater than the courage to fight wars, because wars call for the courage to defend against enemies. But revelation calls for the courage to be defenseless before those who claim to love you, to stand unarmored before kin, to risk the possibility that those who promised loyalty may instead offer judgment. And yet there comes a point where the soul cannot bear its own secrecy any longer, where silence becomes a heavier chain than shame, where concealment becomes a kind of slow death, and so the heart pushes forward, desperate for air, desperate for witness, desperate to be known in fullness rather than fragments. Do not mistake this unveiling for weakness, for it is not the collapse of strength, but the exercise of it in its truest form, the strength to set aside masks, to risk being seen as one really is, the strength to choose honesty, even when dishonesty would keep peace a little longer. And if you would understand her, if you would honor her, you must see that what she reveals is not merely information, not merely fact, but the very trembling essence of her humanity, wrapped in years of silence and fear, now unwrapped and placed before you. And such a gift should be received not with curiosity or prying eyes, but with reverence, with the awe that one brings into a cathedral, for it is holy ground whenever a soul speaks its hidden truth. The weight of revelation presses upon both sides, upon the one who dares to speak and upon the one who dares to listen, for listening itself becomes a sacred act, not passive but active, not mere hearing but bearing, as though you stretched out your arms to catch what falls from hers, as though you held out a vessel to receive the waters that once threatened to drown her, and now pour into your keeping. And the danger for you, the temptation for you, is to turn away, to minimize, to dismiss, to treat lightly what was in fact carved upon her in fire. But if you resist that temptation, if you choose instead to listen with the full measure of your being, then you become part of the miracle. Then you bear the weight with her, and in doing so lighten it. There is something terrible and beautiful about the private becoming public, about the moment when the inward is laid outward, for it strips away illusions, it exposes reality. And we are creatures who cling to illusions as to warm blankets, who prefer the safety of what seems rather than the danger of what is. Yet illusions never sustain, they never nourish. They are like cotton candy that dissolves on the tongue, leaving only hunger behind, while truth, though hard, is like bread that endures, and so the revelation, however hard, is always a mercy in disguise, because it replaces illusion with substance, and though the first taste may be bitter, the nourishment it brings will endure long after bitterness has faded. To reveal is to surrender control, to hand over the keys of one's inner chamber and say, here, enter, see for yourself, judge if you must, but know me as I am, not as you imagined me to be. And such surrender is the highest form of trust, for it assumes that love will prove stronger than shock, that loyalty will prove deeper than discomfort. And it is not given lightly, it is not spoken casually, it is offered with trembling hands, and when it is received faithfully, when it is guarded rather than gossiped, honored rather than exploited, then something unbreakable is forged. Then family becomes not just a word but a fortress, not just a bond of blood but a covenant of souls. You may wonder why she kept it so long, why she let silence reign for so many years, why the sacred was hidden until now, but understand that secrecy is rarely chosen out of malice. More often it is chosen out of fear, out of the dread that those nearest might not understand, that love might falter under the strain, that trust might fracture under the weight of truth. And so the secret is carried, not because she wished to deceive, but because she wished to preserve peace, to preserve closeness, to preserve the fragile structure of belonging. But secrecy that begins in protection often ends in isolation. And what was meant to guard the bond slowly begins to erode it. And so at last the moment comes when silence can no longer be justified, and revelation becomes the only path forward. In this unveiling, you are not only confronted with her truth, you are confronted with your own heart. For revelation is a mirror as much as a window. It shows you her soul, but it also reflects your own. Will you meet her disclosure with compassion or with condemnation, with arms open or with arms crossed, with the humility of one who knows they too are fragile, or with the arrogance of one who pretends they are whole. For the way you receive her sacred will speak as much about you as her secret ever spoke about her. And perhaps that is the heaviest part of revelation, that it tests not only the speaker but the listener. Not only the revealed but the receiver. The publicness of what was private changes everything. For once spoken it cannot be unsaid. Once heard it cannot be unheard. And this irreversibility is both the dread and the hope, for it means there is no going back to illusion, no retreat into ignorance. But it also means there is the possibility of moving forward into a truer love, a deeper loyalty, a more honest bond. And though the path ahead may be harder, though it may demand forgiveness, patience, understanding, it is nonetheless the only path worth walking. For what kind of love do we claim if it cannot withstand truth? What kind of loyalty do we boast if it falters before revelation? What kind of family are we if we only love one another's masks and never one another's faces? Consider that all sacred things are revealed at some point. For what is hidden will be shouted from rooftops, not by human malice but by the nature of truth itself. For truth cannot remain buried. It rises like seed through soil. It presses like springtime against the weight of winter, and sooner or later it breaks forth. And when it does, it asks us if we are ready, if we are willing to meet it not with fear but with reverence, not with scorn but with mercy. And so now in this hour you are given the chance to prove what kind of listener you are, what kind of sibling you are, what kind of human you are. This is about your sister and the transforming power of truth, for there comes a moment when what has long been buried rises, when what was hidden is spoken aloud. And though the first taste of revelation may be bitter upon the tongue, though it may sting like salt upon an open wound, yet within it is the seed of redemption. For truth, though painful, carries a strange mercy, and truth, though sharp, is never cruel without purpose. It cuts only to heal, it wounds only to cleanse. And when it is received in humility, it becomes the very fire by which the soul is refined, burning away illusions, consuming pretense, and leaving behind the gold of reality, a reality in which love, though shaken, may grow stronger than ever before. Think of how darkness fears the light, how shadows cling desperately to corners until the dawn breaks, and then they scatter powerless before the rising sun. So too with secrets, so too with silence. They hold their sway only as long as they are unchallenged. But once truth appears, once the light of honesty shines, they are dissolved. And though the first sight of what was concealed may shock, though it may disturb, though it may unsettle, it is nonetheless better to walk in clarity than to stumble in the twilight of half-knowledge. For stumbling injures more than sight ever could, and clarity, though harsh, is the only ground on which redemption can be built. Your sister's sacred, now revealed, is such a truth. And you may feel at first that it has broken something, that the bond you thought you shared has been fractured, that the image you held of her has shattered like glass. But know this, that what shatters is not the person. It is only the illusion. And illusions, though comforting, are fragile things. They cannot endure time. They cannot endure suffering. They cannot endure reality. And so when they break, do not mourn them, for they were never the whole. They were never enough to contain her soul. Mourn instead the distance that secrecy created. Mourn the years in which you could not walk beside her fully. Mourn the weight she carried without your knowledge. But do not mourn the breaking of illusions, for their breaking is the first step toward the building of something stronger. Truth transforms, because it is living. It is not inert fact but active flame. And when it enters a room, it changes the air. When it enters a heart, it rearranges the furniture of thought and affection. And you cannot go on as though nothing has happened. You cannot return to the days before you knew. You can only move forward into the new reality that truth has unveiled. And here lies the great gift and the great terror of revelation. That it destroys the old in order to make room for the new. That it forces a choice upon you. To cling to broken fragments of illusion, or to step into the frightening, but liberating space of honesty. And though the choice may feel like loss, It is in fact the only path to redemption. Redemption is never found in denial, never found in pretense, never found in the polishing of masks. It is found only in the rawness of truth, in the courage to face what is, in the mercy extended when all defenses are stripped away. And this is why revelation, though feared, is a grace, because it creates the conditions where redemption becomes possible. It clears away the thorns of falsehood so that the seed of renewal can be planted. It draws both of you into a soil where forgiveness may grow, where compassion may deepen, where love may expand beyond the limits of illusion into the vastness of reality. You may ask yourself how truth could redeem what it has wounded, how it could reconcile what it has divided, and the answer is that truth does not work as we imagine. It does not simply state, it recreates. It does not merely inform, it transforms. It enters like yeast into dough and changes the whole substance. It enters like light into crystal and refracts into unexpected beauty. And though you may think at first that revelation has ruined everything, that nothing will ever be the same, that the past has been poisoned, you will come to see that it has not ruined but remade, not poisoned but purified, not ended but opened. And what lies before you is not the end of love, but the chance for love to become truer than it ever was. And is this not the mystery of family? That love is tested and broken and healed, that loyalty is stretched to its breaking point, and then rewoven. That bonds are not made strong by never being strained, but by surviving strain. And so it will be with you and her, for now that her sacred has been revealed, you are invited into a deeper bond, no longer the shallow comfort of not knowing, no longer the fragile peace of silence, but the enduring fellowship of those who have walked through fire together and emerged not unburned, but refined. Do not fear the pain of the present hour, for pain is the midwife of transformation, and though it groans, though it labors, though it makes the soul cry out, it delivers something new. And you will see that what is born is worth the anguish, that what emerges from revelation is worth the trembling, that what comes from honesty is worth the breaking, because what is born is a bond that is no longer bound by secrecy, no longer fractured by silence, no longer dependent upon illusion, but held together by the unshakable cords of truth and mercy. And mercy is the companion of truth, for truth without mercy crushes, truth without compassion hardens, but truth when received in mercy becomes the soil of reconciliation. It softens the heart. It heals the wound. It teaches you not to despise her for her silence, but to honor her for her courage, not to judge her for her secrecy, but to love her for her unveiling. And mercy will remind you that you too have carried secrets, you too have hidden chambers, you too have longed to be known yet feared to be seen, and so you will meet her not as judge, but as fellow pilgrim, not as accuser but as companion. And in that companionship redemption takes root. The transforming power of truth will not only change her, it will change you. For revelation never leaves the hearer untouched. It forces you to confront your own illusions, your own judgments, your own fragility. And if you allow it, it will make you gentler, more patient, more capable of love. For once you have witnessed her sacred unveiled, you will know more deeply that all souls are sacred. All secrets are burdens, all revelations are invitations, and you will move through the world with greater reverence, treating others with the compassion you learned in this holy hour. Do not underestimate the slow work of this transformation, for it will not happen in a moment. It will not be complete in a day. It will unfold like the growth of a tree, roots sinking deep unseen, branches spreading outward visible only with time. And you may stumble, you may falter, you may feel anger or sorrow or confusion. But if you remain, if you endure, if you continue to choose love even when love is difficult, then truth will do its work, redemption will flower, reconciliation will be born. And one day you will look back and see that the moment which once felt like the breaking of everything was, in fact, the beginning of everything worth keeping. For this is the paradox of truth, that it wounds in order to heal, that it unsettles in order to bring peace, that it breaks in order to build, that it kills illusions in order to raise reality. And though we resist it, though we fear it, though we run from it. We cannot live without it, for only truth can make love true. Only truth can make loyalty lasting. Only truth can make family real. And so your sister's sacred revealed is not her ruin, it is her redemption, not her fall. It is her rising, and not the end of your bond, but the chance for it to be made new, tested by fire, strengthened by mercy, transformed by the power of truth,